Okay, everybody, welcome to another edition of BTS Live. That stands for, and Mark's waving there, Behind the Scenes Live, episode 6, which I cannot believe it's episode 6 already. I am Marty McPadden, along with my partner here, Mark Rogers. Hi, Mark. How are you?
I'm doing just fine. Counting down the days to Christmas, enjoying the holiday season.
Absolutely. It's a great time of year. Kind of kick back a little bit. Things start to slow down a little bit for us, which is good. Mark is, just to give a little background, Mark is an employee of ESPN. That's where I was at one point. 19-year veteran. Mark, how long have you been there now?
I'm coming up on 14 years at the end of the year here. I actually just got I won't go into the details because you're familiar with the 15-year award. I received a 14-year plaque. It's kind of a new and different thing, but I received that last night.
Wow, not bad. I'll have to hear about that more offline. Some of
Definitely.
Those stories.
Yeah. It has a story behind it.
Exactly. So we're veterans of big media, and we've learned a lot. I mean, a lot of the lessons we've learned in working for a large media company can be brought to technology today and kind of the media landscape today. So I'm going to get right into it because I got a lot to cover here. So let's take a look at, I'm just going to go through some things that I see as part of the landscape of live online video in 2015 and also looking ahead and some of my thoughts on this. So, of course I'm screwing this up here already. So I'm going to come back here, not to give away. So I got to just reset my slides. There we go. All right. So number one, tech has really caught up with the vision of online live video. Live video is not new, certainly. It started a number of years ago. In fact, there's a fellow on Blab that I'm friends with, John Preto. Human2 is his handle. He's one of the pioneers, actually, of live streaming video. He did it back in the 90s. He actually had proprietary technology. So it's not new, but I think 2015 has kind of been a watershed year where technology's kind of caught up with the vision of what we want it to do. Starting with mobile accessibility. Now we have mobile apps. Periscope, as most of you know, came out in the fall. And here's John. See, as soon as I mention his name, he comes in the room. John, I was just giving you props. We're talking about the state of online video and kind of giving a shout out to you as far as being one of the pioneers in that it's not new, that someone like you has been doing it for a long time. But I think that with mobile apps coming out and the emergence, making it very easy, Periscope, touch of a button, Blab, touch of a button, you can start and broadcast right away. I think that has made it very accessible and really has opened video up to the masses. Also, the emergence of web technology called WebRTC, which we are using on Blab, stands for Web Real-Time Communications. And that's an in-browser video technology that has made Blab and made some of these services possible, where you can have just a webcam and with one button get right on the air and don't have to go through a very complicated setup. And of course, bandwidth increases has contributed, including LTE, which is mobile data technology that enables very fast transmission of data, which contributes to being able to do video either at the desktop, like we're doing today, or mobile through your mobile device. And again, mobile has been a real driver in this. Another area I think is no more gatekeepers. Mark and I both have experience working for a large media company. And if you want something on ESPN, there's ESPN will contract with independent producers, but they have to pitch the network and they have to get approved, and ESPN has to determine what they want to, if they want to air your product, if it's good enough in their eyes. Now, you don't need anybody's permission. You can get on with as little as a smartphone. You have an app, you can push the button and you get on the air, and you have direct access to basically everyone in the world that has internet access. And number 3, I think the direct access, and I'm losing my place on my slides here. Number 3 is deluge of content. Content with all this access, there's been a proliferation of video content or multimedia content. I'll even spread it out to that. just like blogging when it first started in the 90s or in the early 2000s. When it first started, there weren't many people out there. It was a novelty. So there were really people in it, you know, gains, if they had good quality content, gained some success. Now it's very, very difficult. There's so much out there that it's hard to kind of break through. Kind of the same thing's starting to happen with video a little bit, is that it's so accessible that people can get on and just do whatever they want. I think that, you know, quality is rare, you know, because of accessibility. You know, I don't know how many times, and again, and I'm speaking really for the professionals and the business people that want to do content. I'm not talking about people that want to come on and do just a blab from their bed or go on Periscope and talk about what food they're eating or whatever. That's fine. They have that accessibility. They can do whatever they want. I'm talking about the people that want to do it professionally and for business. And you really got to put the work in and think about the quality. And frankly, I think it's a low bar. I think that if you put the work into it, I think you can break through. And also, just because you can doesn't mean you should. You know, I think that, again, the accessibility is there now with all these apps. And again, speaking of the professional and business user and content creator, just because you can do video means that you should do video? I don't know. You know, I mean, you know, doesn't mean that you can't. Waleed, we're going to take questions at the end. So we'll invite you to come in as soon as we just do our prepared segments. But just because you can doesn't mean you should, you know. So those are some of the things I saw in the past year. Going forward, what are some of the issues that I see that need to get solved or hopefully will get solved? One is discoverability. I think that that's really one of the main issues right now on, if you're looking at Blab, for example, or looking at Periscope or any of these video apps or video services, is that as people join, as people create content, as people, you know, get the knowledge and get the courage to come on camera, you know, how do you find the good stuff? I mean, there's a lot of content being created, but how do you find the real good stuff? You know, and that's an issue that has to be solved right now. Good content needs to be findable. I'll use an example that's present day. YouTube, for example. YouTube started back in the mid 2000s, and so when they started, they were an independent company for a while until Google bought them. I believe it was in 2006, and the power of Google with search engine technology, that's what makes YouTube, is the searchability of content. You know, there's many times where I'll have a question, especially around production or some technology question, and I'll put the keywords in. I'll go right to YouTube and put the keywords in YouTube, and I'll usually find multiple videos. And usually if I'm looking for a tutorial, and certainly you have to search through the quality, but at least you can find what you're looking for. And I think with live video, that's going to be a key going forward, is discoverability, being able to find what you're looking for. Another key is quality over quantity. I think that's going to be something that we're going to see emerge. Right now, we're in that shiny object phase. You know, all this stuff is new. People are jumping on Periscope and Meerkat and Blab and Fire Talk and all these services. In fact, I looked at a couple services last night. I mean, they keep coming out of the woodwork, you know, it seems like. And it's new to everybody. And it's like, oh, what's that? Oh, you know, and introduce new features. I mean, that's a phase that we go through. I think we got to kind of go through that a little bit. And I think in the end, quality always wins out. So look for that. And I think if you're going to jump on these or looking to create content, if you go in with the attitude of, you know, you always want to be better, always be striving for quality, both in presentation and production, I think you're going to win. The next area that I would say is, I call ABL, and that stands for always be learning. I think that, you know, there's a lot of people that will get into this, and I'll use Periscope as an example since they were one of the first ones in the current crop, right? They download the app, they push the button, and they think they already know everything. They're an expert, you know, just because they can. And you know, I consider myself fairly advanced, but I don't consider myself at all arrived, or I'm constantly learning new stuff. The damn expert, Jeff Adams is absolutely right. You know, I mean, I always want to be learning. I always strive to, because there's always something to learn, always something new. And with online live video, it's still very, very new. And we're just in the early stages. So how can you know everything? So if you go in that attitude where, you know, always be learning something new, always be, you know, adding to your technique, adding to your knowledge, you'll get better and better, you know, add to your knowledge, set the foundation before you build the house. You know, and I'll throw an example out there. In my past life, I was a wedding photographer. You know, I always was interested in photography. But what I did was I trained with a photographer, a local photographer here in Connecticut, and I learned the foundation. And I shot. It was back in the day of film, and I shot manually. And I learned how light interacted with film. I learned all that technique. I got to the point where I used a manual light meter, and I learned how to do it manually. And I got to the point where I was able to kind of look at a scene and determine what the f-stop and the shutter speed should be, because I learned how light, because photography is all about light and how it gets captured on film, right? If you learn that foundation, then you can transfer it to digital and then go from there. You know, I think that's so important. You know, you never really arrive. And the last one is called the 2 Ps. First one is patience. And I think there's a serious lack of it right now. Especially in the online space and online video space. I think, again, people come on, they expect instant success. In fact, frequently they're being sold that through programs and all that stuff. And I think if you look at the people that are truly successful, and there are some people on this blab right now that fit in that category. I'll call out Jeff Adams. So I see him up on the top there. You know, Jeff has a online network, you know, of shows. I mean, and Jeff's to the point now. He didn't get there yesterday. He didn't just start yesterday and get there. He's worked very, very long and hard. You know, John Preto is another one. Stephen Hayward, Tech Buzz. He's not in the blab here, but he's another one. Years. You know, you got to be patient and you got to really work toward it. And the other one is persistence. Persistence kind of goes along with patience. You got to. I think a lot of people fail to succeed because they give up too quickly. They give up right before they have a breakthrough. You know, and I think Mark can talk to this a little bit more in his remarks, where it's, and we talked about it in previous blabs, where you have to pick areas that you're really interested in and passionate about the subject that you want, and that you want to learn more about, because you're going to be doing it for a long time. And, you know, I can't speak, you know, can't emphasize that enough. And frankly, you know, I'll throw in a bonus one here, and that's consistency. And I'll throw in a kind of an analogy here. Both Mark and I have been managers of people in our career. Mark still is. And one of the things that we would discuss, and this is at ESPN, and it was a big corporation, we'd have yearly goals, and we'd be managing people, and we'd be doing yearly performance reviews. And a lot of people, a lot of our direct reports would not exhibit the patience it required to get that promotion and to really be successful. And we would talk about that. And again, it's about consistent high performance over a long period of time. It's such a simple concept, but that concept can be brought over to the live video space as well. And again, it doesn't happen overnight, but if you continue to build, I think that's the ingredient for success, you know? So there you have it. I mean, that's kind of in a nutshell, and I went through that very quickly, and we'll get into this a little bit more next week when we kind of talk about what we see going forward. And then we got a ton of stuff planned for 2016. But Mark, I mean, I think that's kind of like just looking at, from my vantage point, as far as what online video, it's again, I look at it as a huge opportunity. But again, it doesn't necessarily mean that anything's changed. There's a lot of foundational things in there, a lot of foundational thinking that you can apply to this, even though it's a new technology. It doesn't replace hard work, doesn't replace, you know, I always go back to the patience, persistence, and consistency, which I think are extremely important.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned the patience, the persistence, and the consistency. And you know that I contact you maybe every couple months that I'll in addition to our almost daily chats back and forth, texting and so forth, that I'll hit you with a when am I going to see a breakthrough? What do I need to do? You know, I'm producing this content. I have people coming at me almost on a daily basis saying, you know, why don't you have more views? You're really good, and we gain a lot from this. What can I do to help you? I have people making those comments almost on a daily basis, and I'll go back to Marty and I'll say, what am I not using? What do I need to take on? What do I need to do differently? Do I need to post at different times? What do I need to do? What's the magic formula to see this breakthrough? And Marty always gives me very practical steps in analyzing my current workflow and some of the things I'm involved in. So there's definite practical solutions that he gives me and help, but a lot of it just goes back to, hey, do what you're doing right now. There's not a magic formula. There are approaches and processes that you can take advantage of that obviously expedite the process and to take advantage of the way all this works, but just stay with what you're doing and stay at it. And then just to kind of put things in perspective, I see my lack of progress, but then I go back and I check out the numbers and see, hey, I've made pretty good progress. You know, for example, this year, I expect to have at least something in the range of 60% more views than I did all of last year. I'm going to have added over 100% more subscribers. Now we're talking about fairly, depending on your point of reference, low numbers, but I'm gaining percentage-wise in huge amounts. It just doesn't seem huge because I don't have 1 million people watching my videos. So I'm far from that point, but it can get frustrating. You just have to kind of decompress and really tap into those support systems that you have. And for me, from a professional standpoint, Marty would be probably number one on that list. So he's been a great resource for me. New Year's resolutions. Marty, do you do any New Year's resolutions? Is that
Oh man, you know what? It's like I try. Usually involves working out at getting back to the gym, which is on my list again this year. I mean, it's funny because I've been lax probably since September. Hate to admit that, but Misty
I don't
said,
think Misty would be happy hearing that.
Well,
she seems very dedicated.
That's no question about that. We're actually, it's funny because it doesn't exist unless it's on your calendar, and we're putting it back on the calendar and actually making sure that we actually schedule that hour, that we get down there. But yeah, that's probably for me. That's number one, and number two, actually, I have domains for BTS Live and actually building a quick website and actually just taking the time. And I think over the holidays it slows down for us, so. Actually got to get that done. But yeah, I think the health thing is definitely the most important for me.
Yeah, so I was thinking about how I would complement your segment, and I was thinking about New Year's resolutions. So they have failed for me over and over in the past, and I have failed them. So I don't know how many people out there want to chime in regards to New Year's resolutions, but I'm going to talk more about vision, and I'm going to contrast New Year's resolutions, which seem to bog us down because it's a to-do list. It's I have to do this. I have to break this habit. I need to start doing this. Versus, what is your vision? What are your goals for the next year? And Marty and I are generally speaking, and if you're in a different place, if you're just doing this for fun, that's awesome. That's great. Marty and I are generally approaching this from the standpoint of people who want to take this seriously, want to approach it from a professional standpoint and want to build something and build their brand. So I want us to take a step back at the beginning of the year, and this can be done anytime. If you come to that place in your life and in your professional career where it's May and you need to reset and reassess and start over, hey, this can be done, of course, anytime. This seems to be the time that most people kind of assess where they are in terms of their life and profession and go from there. So we're going to take this opportunity as a year-end review to look forward to 2016. And I really think, and we've talked about this in bits and pieces in past shows, reassessing and really looking at your brand and assessing what you want out of this, what your desire is, what your goals are. And of course, they have to be realistic, but certainly set your sights high because you can make it happen. But as Jeff has pointed out a number of times on the comment section, it's going to take a lot of hard work and it's going to take time, and it's going to take smart work. So there's a lot of people out there, unfortunately, that are putting a whole lot of effort into this and work it tirelessly, but they're not very smart in their approach. So it has to be concentrated, focused, smart, intelligent work, and you need to be very focused in what you do and very very measured in what you do. So, we talked about this last week in regards to how do you spend your time. The content is most important, but you also need to brand yourself. You need to market yourself. You need to build relationships. You need to focus on the operational aspect of improving your set, your audio, your video, and all of that. You need to deal with technical issues. They come up for all of us. And you need some time to rest and relax. So that also needs to be scheduled in that equation as well. So it's really a good time to assess what you want to do for the next year, what your vision is, what's realistic. So for me, I'm going to put it in a numbers place right here. I mean, I'm going to capture this in regards to numbers. I had roughly a little over 100,000 views in all of 2014. So it was my goal, based on the growth that I had seen previously and that I hoped realistically to achieve this year, to go from 100,000 views to 180,000 views this year. And fortunately, I'm pretty much going to hit that mark and get close to it. I had added 180 subscribers on YouTube. And again, these numbers could sound big. They could sound minuscule to many based on what you see on YouTube. 180 subscribers last year. I've added like 280 this year. So I'm seeing that progression. I watched a video the other day on YouTube of a guy that my son follows, who's a big nutritional guy, who's into working out, nutrition, and he's also an inspirational guy. And I wish I could remember his name because he's very inspirational. And he showed his timeline of growth. And it goes along with what Marty was talking about, the patience, the persistence, and being very passionate about what you do. And it was amazing because this guy has over 600,000 or 700,000, and I might be shortchanging him because I think he's got 2 YouTube channels, and one's pushing 1 million, and the other is well over 1 million subscribers. For 5 years, this guy saw minimal growth, and he was grinding. And he was pounding away at this, and he saw basically no growth. Like, I was encouraged to see the growth that I've seen in the last 2 years at 60, 70, 80% views, comments, and subscriber growth compared to what he had seen for 5 years. Then all of a sudden, what Marty tells me is the hockey stick effect. He's just exploded onto the scene. Now, if he would have quit after 4 years or 4.5 years, he would not have experienced that growth and seen that massive explosion in his following. So it's just, again, Marty and I are really working on putting together a product that we can present to you in an organized way to help you, again, with your on-camera presentation, your behind-the-scenes and technical and operational approach. And so some of the things that I just addressed are going to be available in the future in a more concise and pointed way. But I want to encourage you to take a step back, even if it takes a full day or a full week. I'm thinking about, aside from this show and another show that I'm prioritizing, and Marty has an idea of how much content I'm pushing out per week. We're talking like 20, 25 videos. So I'm on with bloggers and broadcasters all the time, pumping out content. I'm thinking about shutting things down for like a week, just kind of reassessing, okay, what's important? Because I've gotten to a point where if I listed out everything I'm involved in, it's just too much. And Marty talked about quality versus quantity. And Marty's very kind sometimes in saying everything I produce is quality, but I want it to be the type of quality that I'm looking for. So most of the time I hit the record button and don't know what's going to come out of my mouth. And it turns out okay most of the time. But I would like to actually achieve a higher level of quality in the content that I produce. And it may take scaling back and becoming more polished and more pointed in what I do and doing less quantity. So I'm going to take some time to step back, reassess my business objectives, my branding, my relationships out there and building relationships, and the content, and continuing to network and partner with people that are going to support me and benefit my operation. So assess all those things. And I think for a period of time, grinding and going 100 miles an hour and kind of with blinders on, there's a benefit to that. But at a point, you need to reassess and figure out what's really important in what you're doing and what can be left to the side.
Man, when you decide to unload, you got a bunch of stuff there I want to echo. You know, and just briefly what you said about you know, going 100 miles an hour, I'll evoke something I heard from Gary Vaynerchuk, who's a tremendously successful marketer, has his own agency, and he's very I'm watching a video of his. He's very famous for talking about how he started. He's been doing it a long time. It's a very similar story to a lot of people that are successful. But he's very famous for saying he never looked at his analytics for I think it was like the first at least year or 2 years when he started doing he got into video doing videos about wine, and very simple videos called Wine Library TV. Talked about, you know, recommendations of wine, and very little audience in the beginning. And he said, I just put my head down and just produce videos like crazy. Reminds me very much of you, Mark, as far as kind of putting your head down and doing a ton of content and not worrying so much about the analytics in the beginning, because you're not going to see any in the beginning. It's a matter of getting kind of your cadence down, getting your consistency, your quality. A lot to be said for that. I see so many people that kind of look at and think they're going to be successful. Why aren't they, after like 6 weeks, they look up and think, why am I not, you know, blowing the doors off? Why I don't have 1 million hits on my website? It's like, well, it doesn't happen that way. You know, you got to keep being persistent. I want to address some of these comments. They've been tremendous. Robin mentioned people don't realize the hard work that goes into blogging and social media to actually make it a job. Absolutely true. And KGMMAJ, people don't realize how easy it is to produce videos these days. Absolutely. You know, the barrier to entry is very low. So a lot of it is just getting started, you know, and then kind of building on quality from there. Robin mentioned there are folks on here on Blab that are talking about interesting topics, but they are boring to the camera to watch and listen. People need to have some personality and doing video when doing video. And, you know, I can see your point. And that kind of goes along with, I think a lot of people, there are some people I think that are worried about copying and being just like someone else that may be successful. And I think the biggest asset that most people have is themselves, and just being, because nobody can copy that. You know, they might be able to copy some of the ideas and get inspired, but nobody can copy that. And it sounds cliche, but it actually is very, very true. I mean, just do your thing, be who you are. And, you know, again, I don't think a lot of people are real good at acting. You know, you can't really be someone else because it's gonna show through. If you're just yourself, it's gonna be very apparent that, yeah, it's just me, you know, and I'm gonna do. Doesn't mean that you have to be unprofessional, you know, and you want to certainly put a. Go ahead, Mark.
That was something that I really had to overcome. So if I wanted to really go through a painful exercise, I would go back to my college and my early broadcasting, and I really had difficulty not trying to be a broadcaster. It almost seemed strange, but it was almost natural for me to put on this broadcaster image, voice, and go into it like that. And if you've seen the previous shows, we've talked about vocal techniques and visual techniques from an on-camera standpoint, but those are to maximize who you are as a person, your natural self. That's to maximize what you have and not to make you somebody that you're not. And that was something that was extremely difficult for me to overcome in trying to be a broadcaster and have a broadcaster voice and speak like a broadcaster. There's a happy medium there to take who you are naturally to maximize your true self. Use these tips, but not make you into something that you're not, because that is going to be a complete turnoff to everyone.
Yeah, because people can see through that.
Yeah,
you know, it's so. Because again, you know, the best actors in Hollywood. I mean, they get paid to act. You know, but the average person trying to do content, especially a business person who might be new to video, they're not actors. They're not going to be able to pull it off. I mean, and plus, you don't want to be doing that. You're not putting on a performance. You usually, you know, discussing something. It's maybe something you know, or maybe some expertise or something you want to, some value you want to bring. And again, if you're just acting, you're trying to be someone else, it's gonna dull the message, I think, you know. And the best thing to do is kind of warts and all, just be yourself, you know. I'll use myself as an example. I'm by far not professional, you know. I got into this stage at least just by doing it and practicing and getting good counsel from Mark. I happen to be lucky. I know a guy who actually has done this professionally, so I kind of have an unfair advantage, I guess, you know. But it's just getting out here and just being yourself. And I find also that most people are going to be very supportive in what you do, especially if you're generous and actually giving value and respecting people's time. So I think that's a big part of it. I have to love John Preto's comment. Gotta love Mark's photon curtain and an Xmas tree. Yes. And Jeff Adams apparently wants to get a job in corporate America, so that's always good. So Chris, thank you very much. Chris Burgess is here.
You want to rethink that, Jeff?
Yeah, there's so much. You are professional. Yeah, I mean, exactly.
See, John, you wanted me to class up my set. There it is. It's the Christmas tree. So I got about 2 or 3 weeks a year where I bring a little color to the set. Yes, exactly. I need a new set. I hear that almost every day from somebody out there.
Exactly. Rob, let's see these. Thank you, John, for the kind words. These guys are pros. I suggest you follow them both. And John is a pro as well. So, and he won't say it, but I suggest you follow him as well. Robin makes a very good comment here. Same here, Mark. I love. Let's skip that. So Robin says authenticity is so key in social media right now. People don't want to watch scripted and fake. They want genuine people. Absolutely. Broadcaster voice like Ron Burgundy. Yeah, Mark's definitely a pro there. Robin said, let's see, agree that it's what is hard for brands and PR to get. Sometimes they want scripted things for influencers. Yeah, I mean, if you're looking to do this for brands, I mean, I think the patience has to be there. This is the very, very early days, and if you're working with large companies, it's going to take a while. I think the key there is if you want to do this as a profession, especially on the production end, or and working with either in the advertising area or the marketing area. I think the thing you need to concentrate on is what kind of value can you bring to brands and companies today that they're comfortable with, and kind of bring them along step by step. They're kind of like treat them as preschoolers. They're just going to school for the first time. So you want to bring hopefully you know the possibilities and you know what it can be bring, but they don't, and there's always some value you can bring. I mean, I concentrate on the production side, and that's worked out pretty well. So you got to bring people along slowly. Those damn legal departments, yes. And that's starting to loosen up, I think, and they need to see a demonstration of how it works. I mean, I think that's the key there as well. So let's see what else. If anybody has, and we don't mean to certain. This is a little departure for our show. Normally, I'm talking about gear. So certainly, if anybody has any questions about that, we're more than happy to take it. I'm going to unlock the seat since we're a good 34 minutes in. And if anybody wants to hop in, ask a question, has a comment about what we're talking about, certainly feel free to climb into the seat, and we'd love to hear from you. Mark, you got any plans for the holidays? Are you doing any traveling?
Not a whole lot going on there. Typically, I'll travel out to the homeland, which is Ohio. I'm here in Connecticut. Sometime between Christmas and New Year's. That's not going to necessarily work out this year, but I've got a trip planned mid-January to have kind of a belated Christmas with my family out there. But I've got my kids, New Year's or Christmas Eve, that sort of thing. So yeah, we'll have plenty of presents under the John. We'll have plenty of presents under the tree back there, and dress things up a little bit more.
Nice. See, John likes that. See, you're getting the props from John. So, Oh, Mike, can you touch a little bit? Yes, absolutely. Mike DeAngelis, Sausage King from New York. He's another excellent guy to follow. In fact, Mike, I'm gonna pump your show. He does a show every Sunday night, 10:30. Mike, what is it? It's a license to rant. I got it. 10:30 on Blab. every Sunday night. And I got to give props to Mike before I get into that question, Mike. Your show with the mortician, your mortician friend, was fascinating. He did it. If you get a chance to watch the replay, I suggest you do. It was an incredible show. And he's got very creative buddies, and he is very creative, very engaging. And Mike's a good example of that's not his primary business. He makes sausage for a living. That's his primary business, but he's very engaging on video, and that's what I mean. He's authentic. And so if you have a chance to follow Mike, he's probably one of the most authentic guys on here. He's just himself. And I think he's gained some following here too. So Mike asked a question. Can you touch on proper green screen lighting? Yeah, I mean, I'm using a green screen. So if I go back here, like almost like magic, that's how I'm getting my background. So just briefly, what a green screen is the reason why they pick green is it's normally a color you're not going to see on video. So what's actually happening, and I'm not sure if you've heard the term chroma key. Basically, that comes from keying out a certain chroma, a certain color. So I'm using a TriCaster, and it happens to be one of the best, has one of the best green screens. It's called Live Mat. They have built in here, and it doesn't take much effort for me to get a good quality key. In fact, I'll confess, I'm only using 2 lights in my setup, and it looks like I'm using more. I'm using 1 light above here, and it's a simple umbrella light. And I think I paid $50 for my lights from Amazon. Doesn't cost a lot. I put on 1 umbrella light above, shining down at a 3/4 angle, and then the other light is coming right about here above, and it's actually behind the green screen, shining down. And that's how I get what's called the hair light or the shoulder light, and it kind of separates me from the background and gives a little more dimension. But as far as lighting the green screen, Mike, I would say, you want to have a nice even light on your green screen. So if you're using software-based switchers, it's going to be a little less forgiving. I don't have any direct light on my green screen. I think the key with mine is an even color. So it's working really good for me, and I think that's just the quality of the TriCaster, what's built in. So high above the... No, you know what? That's called a hair light. That's another type of light that you can get to kind of give yourself dimension. For your setup, Mike, what I would recommend is you'd probably want to get a couple lights on either side of the green screen and light it up. And the key is you want to try to get even lighting as much as you can, so that yes, even lighting, exactly. So when you do the key, and I think you're using XSplit, and I think that's a pretty good software solution. So when you do the key, what has to happen is it's got to be able to key out that color. And again, green is something, as long as you don't have the same color in your shot, you'll be fine. And I don't think you'll have much of a problem. I think the quality of the software now is pretty good, but even lighting is good. Wirecast is good, exactly. And you should be able to get a pretty good key with that, as long as you have a fairly evenly lit green screen. And I also make sure it's back a little bit. Make sure it's at least 6 feet back of you. Don't have it right in back, so there's room to have the lighting back there. And you should be fine with that. Does your color matter much? As long as it's not conflicting with the color of your screen. Now, green screen, you hear the term green screen. It doesn't have to be green. It could be any color that's not in the scene that you can key on. That's an important distinction. So it really doesn't matter. It got green paper. Yeah, and you don't have to spend a lot of money either. So you can get green muslin from a fabric store and hang it up between a crossbar, and there you got a green screen. I know other people that have studios that paint the wall like a kind of fluorescent green that they can key on. That's another solution. But again, even lighting is the key there with the green screen. So I hope that helps him. In fact, I think KMG posted a link, and that's an example of what he posted there. So that's a 6x9 piece of green screen backdrop. The key with the backdrop and the material is you want to make sure it's thick enough that the light's not going to show through. So it can't be too cheap, so you want to have enough. Like the one I use is a fairly thick piece of cloth, so it doesn't shine through. But that's really it. It's not that complicated. I mean, just again, this even lighting should do the trick. So why didn't we? Let's see. Didn't we have to use blue screens? Yeah, exactly. It can be a blue screen. Robin's absolutely correct. I think that's just another color. It's a weird color blue that's not normally in the scene that you're trying to key. So basically, again, the green screen, what it's doing, in fact, I can show you, let me show you on this. So I'm going to go to my shot here. I'm going to go, and this is what it looks like. And I'm going to take the green screen off to show you. So I'm in front of this green screen, right? And it's a nicely evenly lit screen. You can see the color's pretty even. And that's what the TriCaster is picking up on. So if I turn this on and I go key out the green, then it turns black. So what it's doing is it's making the green transparent. So anything in that black area is going to show through. So what I have in the background, and I have it set up in what's called an ME on the switcher, and it's too complicated to get into here. But what I have set up here is when I go to this shot, that black area is replaced by whatever I have in the background in my switcher. So I have this picture of this control room, and that's being replaced. So when I move my hand around, see, my hand's not green, and it's getting replaced. If I had a green piece of cloth here, and John mentioned this to me, I got to do it. John gave me this idea to hold this green piece of cloth, same color as my background. It would look like I had a hole in myself where I moved the thing around or whatever. So that's what's happening here with green screens. 2000 having the right equipment doesn't hurt. Yes, Mike, you're absolutely right. I mean, I have a little bit of advantage, certainly. The TriCaster does a tremendous job with green screen. In fact, if I turned off all my lights, in fact, I'm going to do that. Let me do that right now. I'll show you. So I just turn off all my lights, and look, my key is still there, right? That's how good this TriCaster is. Yes. So it doesn't take a lot of effort on my part to do this. It just happens I have the right equipment, and I learned how to use it. And that's another thing. You just got to learn how to use it too. So you can see I just turned on 2 lights, and I get that effect. So I'm here thinking you were just well, hopefully I am. I don't know, like, but it's TriCaster software. No, it's actually software hardware combination. It's basically the TriCaster. In fact, if you do a search, you should find it online. But basically, it's a very specialized Windows computer with multiple video capture cards, and with very specialized switching software that is part of the whole package. So that's what a TriCaster is. I have the entry level model, and it's not cheap. Is right. The entry level model starts at $6,000, and it goes up from there. So what I like about what I have is it's very small and portable, but they do have TriCasters that go all the way up to, I think, in the $50,000 range. And in fact, they're used in major. I think maybe I would think ESPN, I think, has TriCasters are similar in the international rooms. And really the big difference is more switcher inputs and that type of thing. So it's a more professional type of gear. But the good news is, Mike DeAngelis, that's a lot of sausage. You're absolutely right. But Mike mentioned he uses Wirecast, which is an excellent software-based switcher tool that you can run on Windows or Mac. The thing is, you want to make sure your computer is powerful enough to run it. It does take some resources to run. So you certainly want to have at least a late model computer, i7 processor. You want to have plenty of RAM to run it. But I know John Preto runs Wirecast. Mike DeAngelis runs Wirecast. Colin Hill runs Wirecast. There's several people on here that are on here a lot that run Wirecast. It's a very, very good piece of software. It's not cheap. The pro level, I think, is in the neighborhood of $1,000. I think you can get into it starting at around $500. But it's a great piece of software to get started with. Some of these other comments, I would like to see you post on basic equipment. Yeah, well, that's something that we'll definitely do in the new year. Not a Mac. Half off Black Friday. Exactly. Cheap is XSplit. Yeah, Chris Burgess is another one. Chris has a website, Senior Online Safety. He's got a really wonderful product called Red Folder. He's been doing some stuff on Blab. And he uses XSplit, and he does a tremendous job with a software-based solution. So don't let in fact, to be honest with you, TriCaster is way overblown it's way overdone for Blab. You don't need that kind of equipment. The reason I have it is I do this on a professional basis, so I do jobs, and it makes sense for me to have it. It makes my life a lot easier to do it. but you certainly don't. It's not required. That's what's great about what's going on in video now. You don't need. In fact, I got to get Mark set up with some of this stuff. He says he's going to get a new computer. Don't like it. Well, that too, Mike. I mean, come on. It's like I got to do a little. Now I think I've inspired like Preto to build a studio, and it looks like you're getting a green screen. So I gotta keep up with you guys, somehow. So Mark, these guys are like, they're up in the ante here. So
yeah, definitely. They're somebody's got to up the ante. It's not been me, so somebody's got to push you a little bit.
There you go. Absolutely. I don't want to. I know you have to run pretty soon, Mark.
Yeah, I got a 3:00.
Yes.
We got to talk some UConn football.
Oh, there you go. I didn't know they had a football team.
They actually made it to a bowl game, which
exactly right. It's something. So hopefully the American Athletic Conference can. Is that? Am I saying that right? See, I'm so
Athletic Conference. Well done.
There you go. Exactly.
Actually had at one point 4 teams in the top 25 this year. Totally unexpected.
Bad,
currently has 3 teams in the top 25.
Mark, before you go, I want to have you kind of promote what you're doing. You do several shows on YouTube, and you're bringing some of that over to Blab. So you've been doing your videos for a long time, right?
So yeah, Mark Rogers TV on YouTube. If you love college football or know anyone who likes college football, please send them my way. Mark Rogers TV on YouTube. We crank out content on immediate news involving college football, previews, predictions, analysis, and we never stop, even in the off season. We have plenty to talk about. I have conference shows with the best bloggers in the business on Wednesday night, the ACC breakdown at 8:00, Big 12 at 9, and the Pac-12 at 11 o'clock. Just started a show with Macy Golder on Thursday nights. It's called Mark and Macy. We do a lot of fun stuff. It's not nuts and bolts, hardcore football or baseball analysis, but it's sports related, but we kick around all sorts of stuff. It's a really fun show. I think it's got a ton of potential. Mark and Macy on Thursday nights. You can catch that on YouTube. Probably going to start a separate YouTube channel that I should have had Marty's advice on last night because I screwed some things up.
Let's talk offline.
With the whole naming convention and everything, all sorts of issues that you could imagine with that whole Google, YouTube connection. So anyway, and then preceding this show every Monday at 1:00, I do a blab called College Football Coast to Coast. And then throughout the week, just scads of podcasts, audio and video on college football.
And you're college football 12 months a year.
It's all the time. It's every day.
Yeah, there you go. So if you're into college football, Mark is definitely knows his stuff, and he has very interesting guests and always something to talk about.
And with Marty's direction, we will transition from YouTube, still on YouTube, but MarkRogersTV.com will make a comeback.
That's what I like to hear. Yeah, we need to talk about that more too. So
all right.
All right, Mark. I'll stay on, but I'm going to let Mark go. Mark, it's been a pleasure. We'll talk again later in the week, and we'll be back again. Should be back again next Monday, 2 p.m. This seems to be working out pretty well.
Yeah, and for everybody who jumped on today with comments and questions, you guys are great. I appreciate it.
Yep.
Talk to you later.
Absolutely. Thanks, Mark. All right, so I'll stay on for a little bit. I just want to make sure I'm getting to these comments here. Mark is he's basically a walking encyclopedia. He won't like me saying that, but he is, and he's incredibly knowledgeable, very passionate college football guy, and tremendous. So if you're into it, he's tremendously entertaining. He really knows his stuff. He's got built up quite a network of people to come on a show. So it's a great show. And I noticed Knight Rider saying, "Go Huskies." Walter, you're a Connecticut guy, right? I think that's why you said that, which is good. Yep, there you go. Absolutely. So at least we got our basketball, which is good to see that Connecticut Huskies made the Stanford. There you go. So at least they made a bowl game, which was good. So anyway, I'm gonna be wrapping it up soon. I appreciate everyone's comments. I want to make sure I'm not missing anything in the comments. If I'm missing anything, just put it in the comments. I'm happy to take any questions. But we talked a little bit about green screen today, and also we have a lot of stuff planned for the new year. I think this is going to be kind of our time slot. I know Walter wanted me to talk about Fire Talk. I'm sorry, Walter. I meant to cover that, and I will. this is something we'll get into again on other shows, but that kind of goes with the whole theme of online video, and that it's very early days. Blab is certainly a great product, and they've been out since the spring, and they've been making some, and I think there's going to be some really cool features coming out with Blab. In fact, the most favorite thing I like about Blab is community. I met a lot of great people here, and I suggest if you can, there's always people around that are, have the same interests. I happen to be, kind of a geek and tech and video, and there's a lot of people that have the same interests, and I met a lot of great people here. And there's some really cool features to come to make it easy for you to, I live in Connecticut, Mike, so I'm fairly close by where you are. But yeah, so we'll get into a lot of this stuff. So I know Walter Knight Rider mentioned Fire Talk, and again, that kind of goes, there's a lot of new platforms that have come out, that are coming out involving live video streaming, and Fire Talk's one, and I kind of see it, and that's Fire Talk. I think it's firetalk.com, if I'm not mistaken. Where did the question about light get answered? Yes, it did, as far as the green screen light, and I'll get into that second, but Fire Talk, that's a new platform. It's kind of like a combination of YouTube Live and Blab, where you can get on either like we are on Blab, where it's just WebRTC, where you just press one button and you're on with your webcam. It doesn't have the 4 boxes. You can have up to 2 people on. But one of the reasons why I'm kind of intrigued with Fire Talk is for a more advanced user. It enables what's called RTMP streaming, which stands for Real-Time Media Protocol. I think it's P is protocol. Basically, what I can do is I can stream directly from my switcher and stream in HD, widescreen 16:9, more like a television presentation, 720p exactly, and a little more flexibility. So what I would do there is I would actually do the show in one box, bring Mark in via either Skype or Google Hangouts, and do a back and forth more like a TV style. The advantage, of course, of Blab and having these multiple windows is it enables people that don't have the knowledge yet or the equipment or whatever to get on and just get started, which is great. And I think that there's some rumors Blab might be messing around with or introducing some resizable windows, because if you were to do a demonstration, I know people have experimented with this, and Knight Rider's right, picture quality and sound is great on Fire Talk because they enable the HD streaming. Blab Whitebar would be great. Yeah, I agree, Chris. I mean, I've seen, like, a good example is Adobe came on a week or so ago and did a really cool Blab talking about the changes they made in Adobe Creative Cloud, in their Creative Cloud suite of applications, and pretty much every application had an update, and that was great. The problem is that they use multiple windows and they use screen sharing, and the size of these windows, since they can't expand, made it very difficult to see. So I think the folks at Blab are watching this, and I would think that they're looking at ideas of how do we maybe provide a method to make the video windows bigger. Maybe it's a responsive video window to be able to do these demonstrations and still make it easy. I know that's a very core thing that they want to keep. I can tell you one thing that's coming is you're going to have the ability to play a YouTube video in one of the squares. I've seen that if anybody's been on Blab for any length of time, sometimes any of the Blab team members are in a Blab, they've been demoing it kind of privately, this technique where in the square, not only can you put a question in there, I'm going to pop up a question from Robin, so I can put a question up there. Not only can you do that, but in the square, you can actually drop a link, whether it's an image, whether it's a slide share presentation, whether it's a YouTube video, and actually play it, and the host will have control over that. And the couple of cool things with that: one, the sound and video quality is going to be like you're watching on your browser because it's basically an embedded browser. And two, I would think if you're a marketer or a YouTube person, if you play a video in here and say you have, like we have right now, we have 12 people in here, and I play a video, that means it gets 12 views because everyone's watching independently, but the host still has control over to stop and start the video, which is cool. So for someone that doesn't have the equipment and doesn't have the know-how and wants to get started, it's a great tool. So those are the kind of things I think you can expect. But Fire Talk, the quality is going to be better. Yes, I mean, Mike, they basically use an embedded browser, and the quality is going to be good. So the only thing is, you're limited to whatever you have on YouTube. So it's basically playing it from online. So if you were to open a browser window in that little square, that's basically what's happening. So you're going to get full fidelity, full video quality, and it looks really good. I've seen it. It looks really good. The one thing I wish we had was RTMP streaming, which I think that was mentioned in one of the other comments. And I'm sorry I missed it. I probably missed it. Runet said, I wish Blab would enable RTMP for the video stream. Would be really nice. I couldn't agree more. I would love that because I think it would give the professional video producers a tool that could be very useful. Again, the community here is great, and I think it would serve them. And then you can still keep the click on the video box and get in ease of use for people that are just getting started and want the tool and don't want to mess around with a lot of extra software and everything like that. So Mike asks, so why wouldn't the regular video be the same in our box? That's a good question. I think it has to do with it's not a browser. It's actually being transmitted. It's actually being uploaded and downloaded peer-to-peer versus basically what they're doing is an embedded browser. So the streaming is not happening from your computer. It's basically everyone's streaming it like a regular browser. So that's why they can, and also if it's uploaded to YouTube in HD, that's what's coming down in your browser. So think of it as basically an embedded browser. So if you were to open a browser, Mike, and play it during a Blab, you're going to get that full quality. Same thing here. It's just being embedded in the Blab itself. So it must use some type of, it must grab, if you drop the link in, it must be grabbing that embed code and kind of playing it, I guess. I'm not a web developer, but I'm thinking that's what's happening there. So that'll be really cool. I think we have another question here. Let me put this up. What about monetization? Do Blab have anything, sponsorships or windows for advertising? They have not talked about that yet, as far as I know. That would probably be a better question for the Blab team. From what they said publicly, from what I can gather, that's not in the foreseeable future. They're concentrating on getting users to adopt the platform and getting awareness up. They do have investment, and they say they have a runway to be able to do that. It's costing them a fortune, obviously, for the bandwidth and the video processing and servers and all that stuff, but that's going to be the key. And then I would think there was some type of advertising model they would have to put in place to monetize it, because otherwise you can't keep something like this going forever. All these video platforms have the same challenge. How do you make money and still serve the user, and what's the right balance? I mean, YouTube does it through advertising. They put ads or lower thirds on your videos. And again, and the other thing is you can share from that, you have revenue sharing there. So maybe that's the model that they introduce. I don't know, but I think it's kind of early to tell for Blab. But we're going to get into this. I mean, this is a fascinating topic. We'll get into the different video platforms. I played with a couple of them. I'll throw out a couple names. Vaughn.tv is one. I think it's you. Oh man, I wish I was playing around with one today. You see, you can't. You now. I don't want to give the wrong information, but again, there's so many of them. I forget. I'm signing up for several of them. I'm testing them out, but there's several of them that allow you to stream direct and also have people come in. So I think it's a long way to go. A question: what do you think of Periscope and Meerkat? They have their use cases. I think Meerkat could be in trouble unless they hook up with a larger company. Right now, Facebook, I would have thought that they would hook up with Facebook, but Facebook has Facebook Live that they're rolling out to everybody. In fact, if you're a Facebook user, you will get it in the coming months. They are doing a stage rollout. So they have their own product, and I think they're using Livestream as their back end, which is another large streaming company that provides streaming services. Periscope, I think they have a little bit better chance, because before they even launched, they were bought by Twitter, and then Twitter launched them as their own product. Although I think they have their challenges because as Facebook rolls out their video, Facebook, again, it's a math issue, because you have 1.5 billion users on Facebook and you have 200 million, 300 million on Twitter. And then on Periscope, I think you have like in the 15 million range, or I don't think it's more than 20 million on Periscope itself. and that's a separate app. So there's some challenges there. Certainly, I think there's a very passionate community there. But I'm not a huge Periscope user, so I'm just kind of giving my opinion from what I observe. But again, it's hard to argue with the numbers on Facebook. I think that Knight Rider says Facebook Live is horrible. In what way? Do you mean the quality or the content? Or I'm not sure, because I think that we are going to have streaming. But yeah, that's another issue. Yeah, Mike, they don't have a lot. They have a lot of use. I mean, that's still a significant number, but it's not in the area of Facebook. Both, in my opinion. Yeah, I mean, this is. I think you raise a good point, Knight Rider, and this is kind of what we talked about earlier. Is that you get this content overload, and then you get all this quantity, and how do you really surface quality? And we talked about this in previous blabs on this show about pre-production, about preparing. And again, these comments are directed at the professional, at the business user who wants to put together a professional presentation. And that includes production. And I could go on a whole rant about production. I've talked with some people on Blab who don't think it's important, and I couldn't disagree more. You certainly get on, and I'm not expecting, if you're just starting, your production's not going to be at this level, certainly, but there's room to grow. I'm talking about the people that just think it's acceptable in a business environment to use a built-in mic on your laptop and and use your laptop camera and use wireless and have all this buffering and not also not prepare their content. Mike makes a very good point. Production and content are very important, absolutely. And I see, I'll throw Mike as an example here with his show License to Rant. I know, and Mike, I think knows this. The show last night was great, and pretty much because they didn't just come on and just wing it. They had it prepared. They had guests. They knew what they were going to talk about. Another person I'll throw out is John Preto and Colin with Nerd World every Wednesday at 9:00 Eastern. I was on one of the shows. I know from being on the inside what preparation they go through. Again, it's prepping. If you want to do something professional, you gotta plan for it. You gotta actually have an outline, know what you're going to talk about, and prepare. If you just want to chat, that's okay too, but it's not necessarily a professional presentation. So I have a topic. Absolutely. Nerd World is good. Second set of hands. Yes, Chris, that's an excellent point. Chris Burgess in the comments says second set of hands to help during the show is priceless in Blab. Absolutely. Find a co-host, that off-camera producer. In fact, I do. I work with an agency, and we do a weekly show for Verizon. We work with their influencer program through another agency, and this agency, as part of their package, they do a Twitter chat and they do an online video show, kind of a recap. And sometimes we use Blab, sometimes we use YouTube. But again, my role is to do the technical production and also act as the off-camera. Sometimes I'm on camera, but off-camera producer to monitor the comments. And I know several people that do a good job on here kind of pair up and divide it's a division of labor. It's very difficult to be on here. I'm here alone, right? So I'm looking at the comments, I'm looking at the camera, I'm also looking at my switcher. If I'm doing slides, that's a lot. Multitasking is a myth in my opinion, and that's a lot to do. So if you really want to do a professional show, you're going to need help, and you're going to need to team up. Mike says, when you are prepared, that means you're respecting your audience's time. 1,000%, I'm going to start that one. 1,000% agree. I always look at it as people are willing to listen to you. I take that as a huge compliment. Okay, then if they're going to give their time, I better make sure I have something of value to offer them. Plain and simple, or entertaining. I know Mike's show is very entertaining. He knows his buddies are like comedians and entertainers, and it's really great show. Nerd World the same way. If you're into nerdy stuff and geeky stuff, John and Colin do a tremendous job, and they do it because they love doing it, but they also respect people's time and they want to put on a good show. So, and that has a lot to do with it, totally 100% agree with you. So anyway, I'm going to wrap this up. Gone a little over an hour. So I want to thank everyone for coming. We'll be back next week. We're going to talk a little bit about what we see going forward. We got a ton of different topics we can get into. I know Barb Tomlin, for those of you who know her. Thanks. Oh, absolutely, Mike. Thank you. I mean, it's a great show, and happy to do it. And thank you for coming over here as well. That's what's great about this community. I met some great people here. So we got a lot of great topics to cover. Hopefully, we can bring some value. We want to get if you want us to cover anything, we're more than happy to do that. We always want to make part of the show. Take your questions. I think that's very important. So never think that a question's dumb. We're all kind of in this together, so we're always happy to help. So thanks for coming, everyone. I'm going to bounce out of here, and we will see you again next week. And also, happy holidays and Merry Christmas to everyone out there. We will see you after the holiday. Bye, guys.